Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Global Geula Summit. I have a very special treat for you today. We have a panel on Geula empowerment, purpose, and leadership with 4 very empowering and empowered women. Empowerment's not only for women, but it's definitely also for women, especially, maybe we'll touch on this, especially in our times where that dimension of humanity is rising. The feminine within all of us, feminine leadership. I know that not everybody, I was telling the panel before we started live, that not everybody relates to the word leadership, but to me, it is an utterly essential word, because even if you're sitting in your house by yourself, and even if you never talk to anyone, you know, there's you that needs to be led by the deeper parts of you, by your purpose, by your soul's here for a reason. And it's a reason that has to do with leadership. So leadership doesn't mean necessarily being out there, you know, rah-rah on a soapbox in front of thousands of people. That's totally possible also. But it doesn't, but on every level, what part of you is leading? Where is your leadership? Where is it that you're moving forward in life in a purposeful and empowered way? And that's really what we want to talk about today. It's a perfect day for this. I know that most people listen to the replays, but we're broadcasting this on Zion Adar, the 7th of the month of Adar, which is the birthday and the anniversary of the passing of Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, who received the Torah, the divine blueprint on Mount Sinai on behalf of all of humanity through the Jewish people. So we're here continuing that mission, that transmission, that dissemination, and maybe some of the panelists will touch on that, because it's a very special day to draw down this power of leadership and Torah-based, Geula-based, purpose-based leadership, as all of the days of the Hebrew calendar come around each year in a cycle. They become a portal for new energy that we can pull down and pull in and absorb and then use to transform our lives, our relationships, our health, our work, our everything about us, which is all part of the purpose, by the way. Purpose isn't just what you do when you're in front of a camera or when you show up at your job. Purpose is what you do every minute, every second, sleeping and awake. That's why you're here. Okay, so that said, I'd love to open to the panel, and let's just a little bit of loose question. By the way, listeners, I'm not sure how many people are up at this hour and online, but if you have questions, feel free to type them in the Facebook comments box or on the web chat, and David, webmaster extraordinaire, will forward them to me by Skype. So I hope that we'll get those in. So let's just start talking about your definition of empowerment, leadership. Again, I'm going to leave it kind of loose, like, what do you perceive happening, and how does your work connect with that and help people on an individual or group basis to activate that leadership and that empowerment and that purpose in themselves, or in any words that you want to use? Who wants to go first? Let's just chime right in.
Okay, I will. I'm the oldest.
Oh, this is, by the way, I didn't introduce all the panelists. It's from a Gottlieb. You can see their names underneath their pictures. Miriam Yerushalmi, Bracha Lipschitz, and Sartova Best. Miriam, I know, is on at 5 a.m. in California. So everybody's dedicated. You see, this is also part of it when you're turned on and activated by your purpose.
You could even wake up at 5.
It's exciting to, yeah. And things work differently. Believe me, I've been disactivated and activated, and it's a universe of difference. Okay, go ahead, Prama.
Okay, so when it comes to Geula and my particular role in helping to bring it, I think it's all about helping people have good relationships, healthy relationships, and I feel that the Rebbe emphasized so much Ahavas Yisrael and joy. And the way a person is happy is by having healthy relationships. It's very interesting. There was a study done by Harvard that most people are aware of, 75-year study, what makes somebody happy. And a number one factor in happiness was having healthy relationships. So and the Rebbe said that joy is what breaks all boundaries. Therefore,
yes, many times.
If A equals B, you know, it's about learning to connect, and it's about learning to forgive, and that's the kind of work that I do in my coaching and in my courses.
So you focus on relationships and helping people to change their.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Is it, if you would give, by the way, just a reminder to everybody, we have people on these calls of all backgrounds. So just translate any words that you use in Hebrew or any other language that's not English. So is there some anchor, Firma, that you, around which, or some core, besides the idea of joy and love, connection, is there any other anchor around which you base your work, or any belief? Somebody's got some background noise going on. I see that, okay.
So I base my belief on many years of studying the place that psychology and Torah intersect, which is just about a lot of places. there's something about any major, I think, moment in or subject in psychology in Torah, and there are messages like the importance of judging another person for the good, the importance of forgiving, the importance of being loving. We see, speaking about Moses, whose birthday is today, he was the leader of the Jewish people, and one of the most interesting stories in the Torah is about how he listens to his father-in-law. I don't know how many guys know how to do that. So what we think are great big things, great big movements in the world to bring Mashiach, aren't where my learning or my energy goes. My energy goes into the very small, in your home, in the street, when you're out shopping. Can you show your gratitude? Can you show your respect? Can you show your appreciation? Can you have the self-discipline that's necessary to not insult somebody who insults you? So it's really about shining our positive qualities and getting the tools that are necessary to get there.
That's beautiful. And it's life-changing also. It's interesting because the second call, the Israel time, the 11 a.m. call today is all about gratitude. And it's so powerful because it's like opens a door into some deeper world of union where new things happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. We'll go to the next person. I just want to point out again to the viewers that it's like we each are born with two opposite things. We have the things that we're drawn to. Clearly, Firma is drawn to relationships. It's not an accident. It's not random that she just put a pin in the map of subjects and chose that. That's where her heart is. That's where her life brought her. Right. Yeah. And then so that we all have those things that we're drawn to. And then we also have the things that we struggle with. And I was thinking before this call, I meant to ask everybody, and I will put that on the table also, just to, did you get drawn to the work you do because of things that you struggled with? I know that I did. I know that it happens like that a lot. So both of those things converge to bring out the reason why the soul's in the body in this world at this time.
Okay. Should I speak? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So for me, Geula leadership is about stepping out, like going away from the linear masculine, the hierarchy, the aggression, the dominance, the conquering, and moving towards the feminine leadership, which is inspiration, trust, attraction. So that's about revealing the greatness of the individuality. So I'm very drawn to it because I'm my passion is Malchus, is the feminine, coming into their own queen consciousness, which is like their truth, their Shabbos, and becoming fully actualized. And when the feminine become true to themselves and authentic and true to themselves, they empower everybody else to become aligned with themselves. So it's sort of like there's a whole art to it. There's so many different facets to it. But when they, allow themselves to shine, and let's say through either listening, deep listening, or holding space for another, emotional, or whatever it is, then they let another person, really come out and become true to themselves. So that's That's really what I'm very into. And what really intrigued me is that I used to always see that the Rebbe, for many years, I used to always see the Rebbe said that the Geula process is when the truth about Malchus is revealed, and that's going to create the unity of all polar opposites of the world, and that's going to finally fully reveal God's essence to the world. So I was like, well, what's that all about?
Can you define Malchus before you answer that? Can you define Malchus in your own words for everybody?
Okay, so Malchus is the feminine truth, but it's really everything that's feminine about us. It's really everything that we suppressed and didn't appreciate. It's the physicality, it's the emotions, it's the passion, it's what else? I have a whole list. It's the animal soul, it's the heart, it's traction, it's the internals. That's also a big thing. It's becoming more internal. It's the body. It's starting to value the body and realizing actually that the body is actually higher than the soul. And the more in tune we become to our body, the more we're going to be energized from that original energy that gave us eternal life. So going inwards is helping us. And that's really very feminine. Feminine is about inwardness. So the more we do that and the more we learn, there's a whole art to doing that. And it's taken from Hasidus and Kabbalah. There's so many, it's all over the place. You have to find everything and you got to put everything into place. So the more you do that, the more you sort of bring the whole world to that. And that creates,
So that it sounds like you're describing basically a complete reintegration of self. Like if you look at the masculine energy, this doesn't mean, again, I just want to say, this doesn't mean male versus female. Right. Everybody has both, right? Everybody has both aspects, but it's been the masculine that predominated, that led, that was the personification of success, the formula to success. And that's still there, but it's kind of ebbing out and a new, like you said, I love that you said attraction. Right. I hear like a reintegration again of the parts of us that we did that had to be suppressed in order to succeed in life, which is the backside, the unconscious, the vulnerable, inner, the heart, the body. Really interesting. It's also, it makes me think of what I've heard described as a side-to-side leadership, and I'm sure everybody here would relate to that.
Face. Is that a face-to-face?
Right. Well, side to side as opposed to hierarchical. Like instead of just having one leader and everybody follows, or everybody getting their place in the pecking order, it's more like when the more a person invokes their malchus, their personal sovereignty. This, as you're saying, this feminine aspect, which is actually the most connected to purpose in a Kabbalistic structure. So the more that, instead of being the dominator, the more that person actually becomes an opportunity or a gateway for others. So is that basically where you're?
Yes, and the feminine actually has the deeper truth, the higher light, and we didn't have access to it because we had to be busy formulating the vessels to be able to contain this light. But now that we're heading to Geula, the Rebbe tells us that we now have those vessels. We have refined ourselves, and now we're ready to integrate. And now we know how to use it. It's like there's an art to using it. You got to be mindful, but it's a very, very powerful light, and it creates expansiveness. It takes us out of constriction and into expansiveness. And that's what Geula is. Geula, God had to hide himself and constrict himself. And by us becoming expansive, we are taking God out of constriction and into expansiveness. So through us integrating with all aspects of ourselves, we are creating that energy of expansiveness for the world. And that's the revelation of God. I
love that. And obviously your work, I just want to say, due to the nature of the panel, which I love the panel discussions, it's probably my favorite format, but I just want to encourage everybody here, listen to what you're hearing. And if you want to know more, you can find out more about each of these amazing leaders and role models, and support people at the bottom, by clicking on their pictures from the poster or at the bottom of the schedule page. They all have good samples, things to offer you for free and for fee, and I really encourage you to check it out. So I really resonate with this, and also the fact that, as you say, that we eliminate the constriction, take God out of that constricting place. For so many years, I have just felt that anything that involves the suppression of self where we have to somehow sadly leave parts of ourselves behind in order to be okay, cannot be redemption. Because it's slavery, it's self-rejection. It's a part of you is not okay. Not that, of course, we don't want to use ourselves in the upside. Right. That's really important. It's not just about a free-for-all, but it's about realizing the potential of every part of us and not to throw anything away. Right. Like we said in the beginning, you know, it's the things that you're attracted to and that you love, and it's the things that are in your way. I mean,
deepest truths of God are hidden behind that. And when we reveal that and we listen to it, we actually find out that God is actually very practical, and he loves, you know, he loves having a good time, and he's actually very earthy, you know, and it's quite interesting. Like, he's not spiritual. Spirituality is a creation, and spirituality helps us find the God in the physical, but the physical is the main thing. The body is the main thing. That is God himself. And we just have to know how to use it to use it appropriately to maximize on it. It's like, I give an example, you know, you eat one ice cream, it's delicious, and 3, it doesn't taste good. You know, it's nauseating, you know. So it's how to use it. God wants the ultimate pleasure. That's the bottom line. So if you know how to use ice cream, you know, it's like simple as that, to put yourself in that state of being connected to your inner self. And that's really God, versus just, you know, wasting it. And, you know, that's the whole, really, it's an art.
The connection, the art of connection.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, thank you. Who else wants to add to this beautiful prism of truth? I see a smile on Sartova's face. Go, except you're muted.
So, hi. So, in the world of entrepreneurs these days, they always talk about stepping into a bigger space and a bigger space and a bigger space. That's, you know, what you're here to do every day is step into a bigger space. In fact, the Lubavitch Rebbe speaks about it all the time. Yesterday's accomplishment is kind of, you know, that was for yesterday. We step into a bigger space. It sounds scary, and it doesn't necessarily sound inspiring to people. But on the other hand, when you think about it, and I'll say in a second how we experience it, when you think about it, your soul will drive you insane until you do it. Your soul will drive you insane until you do it. In other words, you know, why do I have these aches and pains and all these other things? A lot of it is my soul will give me no peace unless I finally let it step into a bigger space. That's what I've experienced. In fact, I have a theory that when a day such as today comes along, we call it a Hasidic Yom, you know, a day that's
holiday,
powerful spiritually, such as Zion Adar. Everybody will wake up feeling that they need a change. Now, if you've been learning the Hasidic discourses, you'll realize it's Zion Adar, then I need to step into a bigger space. If you haven't, you'll wake up and say, I am throwing out all my shoes, or my wardrobe needs to go. We've got to change the couch. Something needs to change. And I research it. I go around and I interview, you know, how do you feel today? You know, did you decide you wanted to change your furniture? Yeah, unbelievable. I decided I had to go to IKEA and I had to, right, of course, it's Zion Adar. So these spiritually charged days come along, and in this time that we live in, we literally feel like we need to step into a bigger and a bigger and a bigger space. The way it often comes to us, the way we see it, is through feeling like you've just hit a wall in a relationship, either with your family, your friends, yourself. You feel like you hit a wall. Ding dong. Okay, now I know I need to step into a bigger space. It seems like the opposite. Like all those stories of people writing to the Lubavitch Rebbe and saying, "I'm done. I cannot anymore." Right? We all know those stories. I'm exhausted. I'm this age.
The Rebbe's like, take an extra job.
Take an extra job. Take an extra job.
Yeah.
And it was explained to me in the most fascinating way. Somebody actually asked the speaker, she said, you know, I'm out there in the world. I can't anymore. You know, I feel the constant guilt of you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough. Who needs that? So he explained to her, and I'm going to say it in my way. Imagine that we live in a series of concentric circles. I'm in a circle this big right now. The next circle is waiting for me. And as I say, my soul will give me no peace until I go to the next circle.
Mm.
So when the Lubavitcher Rebbe comes along and says, okay, now do this, build a, $5 million, mikvah or something, do this now, that's not yet another thing on top of all of my issues and of all my obligations, but it's a key that opens the door to the next circle.
That's
beautiful.
beautiful.
And it can be, if I don't resist it, it can be a very flowing, seamless move up to the next circle, just kind of swimming from one circle to the next and feeling like, oh, how did I ever survive in the smaller circle? It was so claustrophobic. So it probably is the case that when all of these weird things come into our lives, this relationship, this crazy thing, that, it's really nothing other than, and I learned this from you, Shifra, it's nothing other than an opportunity to move to the next stage of personal Geula. So why am I wasting my time? And I'm speaking to myself, why am I wasting my time feeling, it's too much? There's probably no too much in my life at this point, just my perceptions and my vessels are extremely small. So what I do in my work, so obviously you can tell that I'm a person that, I don't know, as I get older, it doesn't seem to diminish this feeling of, where I remember being in a workshop with one of our mutual friends, and they said, what do you want to do this year? And she said, I want to take on to not sort of bother my kids so much about what they're not doing right. And they asked me, what do you want to do this year? And I said, I want to spread light. They okay, calm down. So I feel like we all have that firecracker under us, and we feel like we have light, we can taste it. It sometimes recedes from us, but we want to spread light. And it feels like it's the only comfort that the world has, is that light that we are tasting sometimes, especially through the learning of Kabbalistic thought and Hasidus. We need to give it to the world, each one of us. And so I think leadership is that every single person can be the key and give the next person the key to step into the bigger circle. No matter what you've learned, where you're standing, everybody can do it and probably will not be satisfied with anything other than that.
Again, on each person on their own level. It's true that everybody here in front of you right now does have a firecracker under them in one way or another, but or we wouldn't be doing this. We'd be out doing other things that are maybe easier, but it doesn't matter. Like if you're a clerk in a grocery store and you live by yourself, there's leadership to be had. There's purpose. There's light to be spread. In every person who comes, in front of you to check out their groceries. And I think so yesterday was my birthday. Today is the birthday of Moses and the Yahrzeit. So the custom, it's a Hasidic custom on the birthday to make a good resolution, a hachlatah. And what came to me based on a class that I was teaching yesterday in our discussion was that the hachlatah should be a new language. To work on it, no, work is eliminated from language. Still an evolution, an exploration and progress. But we have language and beliefs that are associated, like you said, it's overwhelming. There's not when people feel like, when we are triggered, it's got to do with language. It's got to do with the frame through which we're experiencing whatever it is that we're experiencing. And I love what you said, Sartova, because it's so true that when you reframe something, when you have another piece of information or a little bit more light, all of a sudden the entire thing shifts. It's not a fake, it's an actual experience. And anyone who's ever been really upset about something and then heard another point of view, or what, I just made a little adjustment in perception, and all of a sudden the opposite feeling occurs. It just shows you that we always need to be creating a bigger frame, that bigger circle, until we're like dealing with actual truth, divine truth, and then everything has a place and everything is good and comes out for the good for everyone. So yeah,
could I just say one quick thing?
Sure.
My iPhone 6, I like to have as old an iPhone as possible for whatever reason, right? From the 60s. So I like to have so it kind of fell into the water, and that was the end of that. So I had to get an iPhone 8, which seemed to, and the truth is, I felt like, who knows, how am I going to use it? It became seamless. I forgot. It's like sometimes I'll change cars and I even forgot about the old car. It becomes, when I was a child, we would be driving on the highway and you would see a hill in front of you and think, that's scary. What are we going to do when we get to it? Are we going to feel like we're falling because we're, is the car going to be leaning backwards and we're going to fall? I would be scared all the time. And I never saw the hill. You know what happens, obviously, when you get to the hill, it's just seamless. You're there and it's your new normal. So I think that all of us as coaches, one of the things that we're here to do is enable everybody to achieve a new normal almost seamlessly so that it feels incredibly joyous and just smooth and delicious.
That sounds good. I'm all for that. Smooth and delicious. Those are two good new Geula category words for my resolution. Okay, Miriam, let's hear from you.
Amazing to be here. Definitely Adar, Zayin Adar. Adar is actually coming from the word adir, strength. The strength to be the best that we can be, but really be at peace with the process. I think that's Geula. It is so challenging sometimes to see a lot of people suffering because they want to already be in that bigger space and they are so anxious maybe about it. And they're so burdened, even with spiritual guilt, that it almost entraps them. It almost imprisons them to do the baby step to get to that better and freer space. And with relationships, it's the same thing. To be able to get along with other people is first and foremost is to get along with yourself. Because if you can embrace that you're perfectly imperfect at this moment, because God designed this imperfect situation, because he wanted us to be co-creators and have the ultimate joy in the making, then we understand that the more we learn Hasidus, the more we tap into the truth of how God is so lovesick. He loves us where we're at. He loves us in the process of being. And that is a key, I find, in this generation to be so Geuladic. Because everyone is so pressured, whether it's by society to make it, by society to prove that there is something. And then when they have that internal warfare going on, then they have no patience for other people. When they can see the weakness that they have as not, I'm less than, that this weakness is actually my greatest strength. An example I like to give, if you go to Niagara Falls, okay, and you put a champagne glass there, and there's this flow of water, that champagne glass is not going to be able to capture the waters that are just flowing, so strongly. So the godly energies that we have flowing and flowing. And the more we're at peace, it's like we're creating that space to be able to contain that godliness. But if there's this ego, I have to be, I have to succeed, I have to get to that greater place, then that's can be tainted with a lot of ego. That could be creating a clogging of the system, a full vessel of the self, the full vessel of self-absorption that ends up kind of making it more difficult to receive the divine energies. So for instance, someone who has an incredible element of compassion, or a person has an incredible energy of love of Hashem. There's just so many different positive energies. And when they're not really channeled toward the positive end, what happens is they end up kind of being snatched by the other side of ourselves, the egotistical side of ourselves, the animalistic part of ourselves, and ends up being used in a very not good way because of the energy of and lack of using it in a positive way. So for instance, I actually tried everyone to get back to the basics. The basics is how to create that vessel so that you can use those amazing potentials that are all inside of you. And that is picking up a prayer book and praying. Picking up a prayer book and praying like you mean it. Picking up a prayer book with a yearning and a longing to connect to the one above that is love sick for you. And then after that, as these holy emotions get aroused, because prayer actually opens the door to your godly positive energies. It's like the Gemara talks about it. Through prayer, your godly soul exits the encompassed, limited, and almost trapped neshama of yours. And it's like that key to open the door out. And then the neshama can now use your positive qualities. Now, once these positive qualities of love, compassion, then what happens is they're so aroused and they're so on fire that you need to then learn some kind of Torah teaching to be able to harness it. And so it won't be all over the place and all fragmented and all dispersed. Literally, it cools down the passion so that it can be in harmony with you. How many times people are questioning why 1 minute I feel so in tune, I feel so wonderful, and then in the next hour or two, it's just like, it just almost is like you were dreaming. Like, was that real? Like, what's happening? How did I let this other person, let's say, who just treated me not properly, steal my inner harmony? How did I become enslaved by the outside world and what just happened? So the more we have that inner peace within us by doing the just baby steps of saying, I'm okay. I just have to open the door to my godly self. The more I understand how to like create the vessel to be able to then be okay with me, be okay with the God that loves me. You know, in this generation, we're not at the toddler generation with Hashem. Like back in the days, you know, if you look at a relationship between parent and child, the child is treated a certain way because they don't really understand things. So back many, many years ago, Hashem had to treat us in a certain way with a certain, you want to call it strictness. It's not really strictness, just like a child is told, you can't go play 10 hours a day. Seems strict, but it's like so that it'll learn, it'll be able to, you know, sustain itself as an adult. So we're in the Geula generation of the adult relationship with God. Before we needed that kind of strictness from God and to have that, all the boundaries of the you know, Gavordic kind of expression that we see in the Torah. And now our Rebbe teaches us we're in the generation of being closer to Hashem in the kind of adult relationship where it's about love, it's about bonding, it's about wanting to come closer. And it's not about guilt, and it's not about I'm not good enough. It's not about all these things that can really entrap a person and make them feel like they don't want to try anymore. A beautiful example the Rebbe gave was, imagine someone had, you know, borrowed money and they had the $10,000 loan, and the debtor comes and says, you better pay that debt right now. I mean, in 1 hour, if you're not at the bank with that money, the person is like, oh my gosh, he's so strict. He's so mean. He's like, I can't pay the $10,000. They give up. The Rebbe says in the relationship, it's something like that. Imagine the debt that comes to the person's mind, but the person who gave them the loan says, I know you had a hard year. I know it's been tough. So you know what? Try your best. Try to just come up with whatever you can every month. I'll even give you 10 years to pay it. Oh my gosh, he's so nice. He's so loving. He really cares. He understands. That ends up motivating the person to want and yearn to pay the debt back. So Hashem gives us so much, and he knows where we're at. And he says, I love you. You're my dear child. I created your Yetzaharas. I created this situation, and I'm not going to be so demanding right now. You take your time and do what you can. I'm waiting for you. I want to be close to you. It's such a different mentality. And so I feel like we have to switch from what was in our previous generations of kind of like the toddler relationship with Hashem.
How many people were brought up until this day? It's not just
and
that's
Hashem,
still sorry?
Oh, so Hashem is just inviting us now to go into the new phase of our adult relationship with Hashem. In fact, there's a pasuk that says that, that we are like brothers in Hashem. Like not just a father, yes, like to get to that level, or brother and sister, to get to that level of being on that adult relationship between the siblings on the same level, not like, oh, a father and a child. I mean, that's our job, to try our best to merge into that new Geuladic relationship with Hashem. And when we do that, then we are more at peace with ourselves. Then we are inspired more to make another step to get closer with love. Beautiful. And then we have the ability to do it with other people.
Well, when we love ourselves, we certainly have an easier time loving people.
I like
times 1,000 at least. Did you want to say something else? Oh, go ahead, Prama. Yeah, I feel like I'm not taking notes, but at some point I'm just giving you guys a heads up. I'm going to want to lay out some of the incredible shifts that you're all describing, different new perspectives that kind of exist in the background that to some people might be, okay, yeah, I feel that way. And to other people might be like, really? Like God really wants it? How do I know that? So, many of these perspectives, it happens to be that for the first time in a panel, everybody here is a follower of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which is why one of the reasons why I put together this particular group on this particular day, because the Rebbe trains us to have this. He's bringing to the world relentlessly new perspectives that are corresponding with the time. It says that the tzaddik is the Einei Ha'edes. He is the eyes of the congregation, seeing a collective soul that we're all part of, and it's part of all of us, every generation. So I would like to make sure that we kind of foster a clarity here. Everything everybody's saying is so amazing, but what are these new beliefs? What are these new principles that are kind of the background for what you're all pointing to? So one of them is it's time to have an adult relationship. One of them is it's time for the emergence of Malchus. One of them is every relationship, although you didn't put it exactly these words, I know that this is exactly what you're speaking to. Every relationship is a microcosm. It's a world of our relationship with ourselves and with God, and changes the world. And then, it's a constant movement, like the soul, any anguish we experience on any emotional level as a result of the soul pulling us, longing for us to go to a bigger and bigger level of, and behind all of that, I hear intimacy, I hear growth, continuous growth. I often say to my own students that we're moving from finite to infinite. And of course, it's going to take more than a minute and more than one step, because we need to remain human while expanding the very cosmic parameters of what it means to be human, level after level after level, as Saratova said, as everybody said in their own way. And then that means changing the relationship with God to be, obviously he's God, ultimately the creator. And at the same time, what are we, and what are we being invited to reveal within ourselves? And what does that look like different from how it ever looked? And what do we have to let go of, in order to be able to step into that new paradigm? Like I'm looking at language that I use. If I say I'm say overwhelmed, or I got to fix it, or it's hard, or, all these work on it, can we up level our language to correspond to the new background beliefs that we want to wire into not only us, but through us into all humanity? Right. When one person changes, the deeper you go, the more the actual interconnection to all that is, and everyone that is in each of us is activated, so that the more powerful and immediate will be the effects on the world when you change one thing. Right. Anyway. Yeah. So go ahead, Sartova. Or Shrema was going to say something for whoever.
I was going to say on the level of Miriam was speaking about the adult relationship. I I invite the people that I work with to think about the fact that God loves them like an only child, and that if he had a refrigerator, he would literally put their picture on it, you know, and that from that place of feeling this divine love and acceptance, that gives us a tremendous amount of energy and light to go out there and to really do the divine work, which is what brings Geula, and to think of each of ourselves as emissaries of that divine work. That, you know, it's our job to bring godliness into the world. So, you know, just exactly what is godliness? God loves, God forgives, God creates, God, you know, gives again and again, even to people that don't deserve it, you know, and you know, can we take that and make that our framework and say, I am enough. I am enough that I can do that. You know, I have enough of, you know, money that I can give charity to people, that if my kid calls me up because they're short of money, I don't have to even think about it for a second. That if a friend, you know, comes and they need my time, that I don't have to think about it, that I am enough. And why am I enough? Because God just loves me infinitely. And if I have to say that every morning, stand in front of the mirror, look in my eyes and say, I love you, you're wonderful, and God loves you too. So be it. That's the way to start the day, because that's where the energy is going to come in to make this huge change in the world. It's coming through our breath, it's coming through our thoughts, and many, many more of our thoughts tend to be negative than positive. And so we have to take the initiative from the minute we open our eyes to remember God loves us and we are enough. And that's the way we can get out there into the world and be leaders.
Toby, you wanted to add?
Yeah. So the amazing thing is, with all these lofty concepts that we're speaking about, we all know this month is kind of a freebie because it's Moses' birthday today. And so his mazel is very powerful. But his mazel, his birthday mazel, his influence fills up the whole month. And it says, Maishu Yisrael, Yisrael Moshe. So our mazel, whatever that is, fills up the entire month and is very powerful. So meaning, the question is, what is his mazel? And I want to tell a 2-second story between myself and yourself, Shifra Khan. It was a lot of years ago. And I remember I was in a place where I was feeling very uninspired. Let's just say it like that. I was not in a great mood. And I called you up and said, I'm really miserable. What do I do? And you said, oh, you're in an ayin. And I said, okay, thanks. Right. Okay, you're in an ayin, which means an ayin is an infinite space of infinite possibilities, which that's what this month is all about. When we're saying the mazel of Moses, of Moshe Rabbeinu, which fills the month, which we have also, which fills our month, it's the mazel of infinite possibilities. So, which is an unbelievable thing to be in, an unbelievable space. So I said, okay, so I'm in an ayin. Thanks very much. So what do I do? So you said, oh, an ayin is a godly infinite space. And, okay, yeah. So you said, so do what God does. Okay, I was, you know, I wasn't in my most inspired mood. So I said, okay, so what does God do? And you said, he looks around to see who needs help. I said, oh. I said, thank you, hung up and looked around to see who needed help. And there was a girl that was all by herself. Everybody else was engaged with other people. And I went over to her and said, hey, I want to go for a walk. And it became the basis of a very powerful relationship. And so I remember that, you know, all the time. Step into an ayin, which is a godly space, and it's through often a very simple act. Who needs help? And then with that simple step, I step into this place of infinity where all the vistas open up. And I'm stepping into everything becomes possible at all times, in all situations. Nothing stands in the way, etc., with that simple act. So why I'm saying that, this is the month when Moses gives us access to that ayin. Pretty amazing. So all the things that we're saying that sound so scary, including especially what I'm saying usually sounds scary, it's there as a free gift for all of us. Just pick it up and do simple things, and we can step into infinity through that. So thank you, Shifra, for the 20 years ago conversation.
Love it.
Don't have
Wow.
to remember. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, I think who needs help is one question. I think what can I learn is another question. What is being called out of me? What's a gift? You know, or even what is this? Like I started to make very big shifts quite a few years ago when instead of feeling an uncomfortable emotion like, you know, tension in my chest and saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? I started to instead ask myself, what is this energy? Yes. And turn around and look at it and try to feel it. Usually what happened in the beginning was it would just disappear, which after a while I didn't want it to disappear. I actually wanted to know what is going on. What is like, what's trying to emerge here? And the more you can also do that, you know, and then it comes out of that. What are you going to create? Who are you going to help? You know, what are you going to change? What are you going to change? What are you going to upgrade or expand or connect to or enjoy? You know, there are all kinds of different ways to go with it, but it's that is the I am being the undifferentiated potential that has not yet taken form. And I think probably it's true that a lot of our depression and anxiety and all of that is that trying to get our attention, and we don't know what it is. So we go back to the known, like, oh, there's something wrong. What's wrong? Oh, coronavirus, or the 10 pounds, or the, you know, the bank account, or the person didn't smile at me, and that's the end of the story. Then the I am just gets carted back into a state of potential instead of coming in and being used to co-create. Did you want to say something, Miriam? Or somebody started to?
Yeah, I want
to. But go ahead. She can go. It's fine.
Miriam, you want to talk or I talk?
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to, you know, just something came to my mind. Like a big part of the work I do is healing triggers, and I look at it as an opportunity. Basically, we don't realize which part of ourselves are like suppressed and denied, and we're really getting back to our truth, which is that we are a manifestation of God himself, and everything that's true about God is true about us, and we've not been aware of that, and that's why we have all these false beliefs and all these things. So it's like an opportunity every time there's a trigger, to get into the trigger and to see, and instead of suppressing it, to see what the message about your worthiness or your value or whatever is. It's trying to tell you something that you on a subconscious level don't really believe that you're worthy, or that you're valuable, that you are expansive, or you should be respected. You know, you think that you're
showing you the opposite of what's really true. The
right, and
showing you the opposite.
Triggers you like that person.
Yeah, very true.
Instead of focusing on like that person's root, there's a part of me that feels that I deserve that because I don't own my worthiness as being a manifestation of God. So, and then what I heal it is I go through all the feelings that this made me feel about myself. And then I say the opposite. I am awesome. I am this, I am that. And it's so healing, and it sort of brings you into your oneness with God, and you start connecting to who you are as one with God. So it's like that whole, that's a very big healing piece, and you see things shifting. It's really easy.
I love this. It's a next level conversation. I just want to point out I want to reflect back what you're saying, and I think what everybody's saying in their own way, that it's not about doing. It doesn't start with doing. Like we've lived in a world where the masculine way is to start with doing and then, get to being at some point based on what you've done. And even more how people respond to what you've done. This is all a mirror. The whole world it's not real. It's just a projection, and how's that projection feeding back to me? But what everybody here is talking about is step into the real. And the real starts with, everything is God, and that's true in you as well. And now it's start with being, like, what are you really? So I love that you're not saying, you're awesome because you're doing, or you should be rich because you deserve, which is based on doing. It's like, everything here is holy, and that's what everything here is beautiful and love. And it's not showing up yet that way in many aspects. That's just because it's time for us to change the vessel. And I think that's what everyone's speaking to. Mm-hmm. Light shows up through the vessel. You have a green glass or a piece of wood with a tiny green circle. So that's going to be a little ray of green light instead of the brilliant sunshine that's available. So I think that's another principle, extracting the principle. It's about being, and you're not being from the ego, like you're so great, so just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Self-expression
Yes.
is awesome. Authentic
Yeah.
self-expression is awesome. Toxic
Yeah.
self-expression is toxic.
Exactly.
But if we are actually stepping into a new reality where we reveal that everything about us is godly, and then how do we bring that out into a godly vessel that brings good? What is the definition? Brings good, brings healing. It's a win for me and a win for others. Everybody gets to elevate. There's a revelation of more of what every human being in their heart longs for, what we would bless ourselves in the world with. And that works for everybody. That's godly.
And I see this, like the more I do this with myself, I see everybody around me changes. It's like amazing. Like they get out of their own constriction. I don't have to do anything. I'm just watching a show. Everything
so
is a
great.
trigger. I feel myself. And then I look, oh my God, this person changed. And my kids tell me, oh my, I don't feel anxiety anymore. I don't feel this anymore.
Wow.
And I don't even tell them anything. I'm just healing myself. And then I'm hearing all the amazing results. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see it works. Yeah. So it's fast. It's beautiful, beautiful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only way you can really get beyond judgment, I'm thinking, is not by not judging, because that's like you're judging, but you're suppressing it. Suppression is not Geula, but by actually realizing that everything, as you say, triggers are here to bring out something that you need to see in order to increase your sphere, your space of being.
Yes.
In the way that's reflecting what you truly are, which is an aspect of God in a body.
Yeah.
Trying to reveal that.
Yes. Yes.
Or progressively revealing that through life. You've been trying. Okay, trying might be on the Gullus word list.
Yeah, you're on a train and you just get up, on the stops. You do your stuff and you get back on, and we watch
it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Miriam, you wanted to add to this?
I remember when I was studying Tanya, the portion where it talked about like the idea of, when you look at the mountains and you maybe even go climbing on the mountains and you're like high up there and you're so close to the sun, but yet it's so cold. It doesn't make sense. And yet I lived in the valley way back then. And the furthest from the sun seems to be the hottest. So the Alter Rebbe actually was explaining this in regards to our vessel and building our vessel. Up in Shemayim, up in the heavens above, the Kedusha can't get absorbed.
The holiness.
The atmosphere, because up in the mountains, there's no atmosphere. So there's no vessel to contain the light of the sun, the heat of the sun. There's nothing there to absorb it. Down in the valley is the most atmosphere. So there is where there is most heat. So up in the heavens above, there's not really an atmosphere to be able to contain the holiness like down here on earth. So the physical things that we do, like pick up a siddur and say these holy words, like pick up any book, Pirkei Avot, or Torah, the portion of the week, Tanya, and that actually creates that vessel so that the holiness of our own soul can shine through. Coming from where I came from, it was always difficult, me being a free spirit, more artistic, to sit down in school and to have to learn and have to be dictated when and what and where. And like most people, they like the more creative type of, people, they feel constricted almost by having been told what to do. It's just very normal for everyone. And so when we see the religious practices, not as some God commanding us what to do, but giving us the understanding of how these acts actually form that vessel to contain the you that is yearning and longing to be free. Because if you think about Geula, you think about freedom, you think about the freedom to be the best that you can be. So the things that we do creates this vessel so that our soul can shine through. And this is a totally different mindset than, I got to do this because if not, reward, or it's not, going to bring me this.
Well, yes, she didn't say punishment.
Like, right. We have to switch that mindset. The Rebbe, in many sikhas that I studied, it's like you have to change the mentality of these precious deeds that we can do that creates the avenue by which your soul faculties shine. You don't have to go to the moon, as I said before. You don't have to try to find yourself and recreate yourself. You're all there. It's just getting to that amazing vessel to be able to let all your positive qualities shine through. And that's so much easier than recreating yourself.
I'm just speaking to the viewers live and by replay, but aren't these healing words? This is just a tiny, tiny, tiny drop of a tiny taste of the wisdom of Hasidus, and in particular the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which it's not wisdom because of like intelligence and smartness, which of course, the leaders of the generation are intelligent, but it's a light from the future.
Right. And we have a mitzvah
that's coming in now.
Yeah. It's a mitzvah to like circumcise our heart. It's like to get rid of the layers by each baby step of doing another act of kindness, another mitzvah, another, like effort to create space in our mind. I remember learning in one of the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe when Yosef was thrown into the pit. And it says that there was no water and there was scorpion and snake. So what's this whole story? Okay, so if there's scorpion and snakes, there's no water. But the Rebbe said that our brain is like the pit. And if we don't have the constant flow of Torah knowledge in that mind of ours, then the Yetzer Hara, the scorpion and snake-like thoughts come to plague us. And the Geula empowerment, the being able to say, this is not a holy thought. I'm not going to let this hijack my mind because, first of all, I have so much good in my mind that I can't have space to let those other things come in. And then as your mind gets filled with the holy wisdom, then you have more chances to choose the right thought. Because without it, it's like so difficult to stop those ruminations and the OCD thoughts and the Yetzer Hara that's dressed up like, with a tall Streinmold, making it as if it's a good inclination, trying to make you feel like, oh, you should be more spiritual, you should be better, but it's not. It's really a trick of the Yetzer Hara to bring you down. So with this empowerment, you have the power to choose what you want to think about and what you don't.
So that's really interesting. I'm opening on Thursday, when you guys are going to be the host and I'm going to be the guest speaking to the summit participants. So I hope you'll bring your questions, but I'm going to be opening up just free registration for my new Gate of Unity School of Spiritual Empowerment and Activated Wisdom. And I've been thinking for so many years, so many years about what does it take to really open the potential for myself and for the world. And it's, as everything, it's, it's a journey. It's like, as everybody's describing, we don't do it in one moment, because even though there will be a moment of supreme revelation, like there are these moments that in which there's a revelation of a certain shift, that happens. Like there will be a moment when the temple is, restored and things like that. But our process is designed, because again, we're moving from finite to infinite. Our process is designed to take place in a step-by-step way so that we can remain ourselves, and through ourselves, and that the physical world can remain physical, although albeit upgraded. It's already upgrading, witness that we're all connected from different countries and different places at the same moment. So that's a serious upgrade, and there are many, many more to come. But the idea is that our vessels will expand progressively so much that they will become ultimately able to encompass infinity and yet be finite. That's a big paradox, which is actually the target. It's actually, and it's in process. So the thing is that when I ask myself, and I want to say this for the benefit of the participants, and also, as part of the panel, what is it that it takes to really accomplish this kind of continuous expansion, which does include, falling and being triggered, without a doubt, that, as Bracha has explained so clearly and beautifully, that is part of the process. It's embedded in the process. So it seems to take a combination of as people are speaking to here, learning the inner Torah, which fills your mind with divinity. Literally, it's the consciousness of God, it's the light of God, it's the activating presence and power of God, and the love of God, all embedded in the mystical Torah, which is why all work that I do to transform, literally to experience transformation on every physical level, it includes mystical Torah. It has to. It's founded on that. It's divinity, it's living divinity. What makes us able to transform and expand? A rock can't do that. The closer we are to the divine, the more we can transform. So, and the other part is, as people have been explaining, to look at the self from a different perspective, to allow the things that get in our way to be catalysts to open us further to who we truly are. So there's the creation of the space. I think a number of people talked about space, right? Creation of more and more space within our beings and around us, which is more more potential, and then to have the divine consciousness to fill it with. And then, what actions do we take to help someone else to be like God, to co-create? Everybody's speaking to the same point from such beautifully different perspectives and beautifully unique language. And I just want to bring that out, that it's, if you're not on the panel and this resonates with you, so your language is being waited for, your language is needed, your perspective is needed, and that's going to come through your particular combination of challenge and passion, that when you connect to divine consciousness and mystical Torah and to purpose and to the light of Geula and do this kind of work, and I suggest, if you would like support, we have support ready for you to access here. Your voice will come online, your being will come online, and that will be an ongoing expansion process, and your leadership will come online, and that will add your necessary voice to the world. So this is one of the things I find so amazing about a panel, that like you can see, if you're watching, you can see people nodding, like we're all hearing things that we kind of know, but we're hearing it in a different way, or special way, a way that we didn't think of before, and it's rounding it and rounding it and rounding it, right guys? It's really special. Mm-hmm. And that's, we should all be in this conversation. All people should be in this conversation, because this is the conversation God wants us to be in and is in with us. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say something again about the day. I'm always into what's the day and the energy of the day. So when we look at leadership, at what we've been talking about, it says Geula zu Miriam. In other words, if this is Moses' day, who brought him into the world, essentially, who made him be who he is? His sister. She's the one who said to her father, don't divorce my mother is going to give birth to the Redeemer, etc. So she's the one that has empowered Moses, the ultimate leader, to step into leadership. But the unbelievable thing, and I'm saying this for a reason, is that it says Geula zu Miriam. Miriam is the Redeemer. Wait a minute, Moses is the Redeemer. So what we have from her is the energy of oxymoron. And she becomes the paradigm of feminine leadership in this generation, which is she holds two realities in her mind at the same time. Her name means bitter, Miriam. She experienced the most incredible bitterness of all, almost all of history. And at the same time, she walked around for 80 some years with this tambourine, knowing that we're going to redemption. So this oxymoron, this ability to have both at the same time, is a uniquely feminine quality that then is the quality that each of us and all of us want to step into, because it's what the world needs from us. That's what I believe. The ability to say, well, how can this be? If not from the male perspective, wait, how can I open up a Hasidic discourse and wow, it's unbelievable. And then I crash back into the world. How can you have both at the same time? A masculine perspective says you cannot be that or that. And a feminine perspective says you can be both at the same time. So I feel like, again, what special koach, what special energies can we have from this day and this month through Miriam, the sister of Moses? She is literally enabling each of us to enable the world to live in an oxymoron. It can be both the difficult and the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of that at the same time, with the ultimate goal. It all becomes one piece of Geula. So that's my thought for the day. And sorry, last thing, if you look at it, the basis of all of Judaism is an oxymoron. It's there, but it's not there. Inside the Holy of Holies, it's there, but it's not there. So if we come to that conclusion, we realize the basis of all of truth is two opposites can and do coexist. So we stand in this moment of intense gullus, as we're saying, it gets scarier and scarier. World terrorism and coronavirus, and I keep muting myself just in case, I'm on a computer, so if I cough, what's gonna happen? Like, I'm in New York. So, and at the same time, it's total Geula, and the two fit, and we can help them fit seamlessly. And I think that that's our merit to do that for the world.
That's beautiful. Bracha wants to say something, but I also want to pose a question. I'll let you go first.
It just, just to take us a little further. It's specifically what I understand through the Rebbe's teaching is the unity of all the polar opposites. When we sort of like seamlessly blend them, ends the struggle because it takes us back to our natural self. And the Rebbe says this, and so we're not going to have to like try not to do this. It's not even come into our time, because when we're true to ourselves, it's the fact that we're denying parts of ourselves that are creating that darkness. So when we're unifying, that's how we're going to end the whole struggle, and we're going to all be righteous and perfect just by unifying that act. And the Rebbe says one more thing is that when we create an environment of expansiveness, that's also like all the stuff that we didn't use before, take physicality to the next level, take care of our bodies, listen to our body, use the mundane, the wisdom of the world, all that stuff, then and to create an environment of expansiveness, that also helps us transcend our limitations. So that it's like when you're in a good mood at a wedding, all of a sudden this doesn't bother you, that doesn't bother you. And so the Rebbe instructs us to deliberately create that environment by using those energies. So that's the two things that really
power of joy
level.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's all beautiful. It's all true. It's really I think also, lest it not be clear, all parts of us are holy. All parts of us are not holy when they stand alone. Yeah. They don't function in a holy way when they stand alone. When does everything come out and reveal as holy? When is it that by being your absolute self, you're automatically, organically, intuitively righteous, productive? It's when you have that bigger picture. It's got to be the bigger picture. We have to understand what the purpose is, which is why purpose and empowerment and leadership all go together. And when you have, in the world, in the Kabbalistic cosmic world of Tikkun, that's a larger superstructure. We're creating a larger superstructure by our connections with different parts of ourselves that have been offline, connections with each other, but also all of that has to happen in the context of the higher. You have to understand what's going on here. And that's also, and why it's happening the way it is, why everybody here is speaking from deep Torah knowledge. That's why they're talking like this. That's why if you can hear and see, there's certainty here. There's confidence here, and it proves itself out in life. It's not conceptual from a book, even though we access it, in many ways, starting from the book, because it's a higher consciousness, and we can't get there only from our human climbing the ladder. It shines, that's what the Torah does. It shines a divine consciousness, a unifying consciousness on us from above. And then we work toward work. Is it okay to keep work? Is that a Geula word? We move toward, we expand toward.
Not work, it's a service.
Something, whatever. We move toward it. We do the processing that allows us to become aligned with it. And that includes the knowledge that, everything about you is created for a purpose. So if it's showing up not good, that's just because you haven't found its place in the puzzle. You haven't turned it around so that its light shines, which by the way, that's what I wanted to say before you spoke just now. I wanted to ask you guys, coronavirus, since you brought it up, and since somebody brought it up in the comments just now, and it has been brought up a couple of times in previous calls. And if we're replaying this in a few months and coronavirus is not in the picture anymore, so this should still be interesting. So what I want to ask whoever wants to jump in here is I would like to just share a little bit with the listeners about the letters. Like, we know that corona, which means crown, what's the word for crown in mystical Torah and Hasidus and Kabbalah? It's keter, which is the inner divine desire and pleasure in everything that is mirrored in our souls. So like, if we look at the letters or the word, like, do you guys want to play with that? Like, what could be a godly purpose that's healing in this whole energy that's coming into the world and catalyzing a few things. Like it's catalyzing a lot of fear, but I think it's also catalyzing in some people, like, I'm not going to get sucked. I'm not saying what it is or isn't doing, I don't know, but there are a lot of people that are like, I'm going to go on with my life, and there are a lot of people that like I'm not going out where there are people in public, or I'm not going to cough in front of do you want to speak to this? It's just, it's up. So I'm just throwing it out there. Anybody, anything to say?
Yeah, I have a thought on the concept of trust, that that when we trust our higher power, when we trust that the world that we live in is a beautiful garden that's there to nourish us and to support us, so we can go out into a world where there are weeds and thorns and be a flower. That's
another Geula belief.
That's how I feel about the coronavirus. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow to go to California, to the San Francisco area, where there's a lot of people.
State of emergency, I think.
Exactly. And I'm going in because I'm going to help my son and daughter-in-law who just had a new baby. And my trust is that, I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do, and that I'll be supported in what I do. And, that I also feel that it's interesting that Israel came up with a cure. Politically speaking, I'll be interested in how BDS holds up in this particular situation.
BDS is dying.
Right. Well, no, really, stop and think about it. No, I don't use Israeli products. Well, you might change your mind now. We're just there.
Not to mention, everybody uses Israeli products because they're in every piece of technology that exists and in all the medicine and so forth.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I had something to share because anxiety is a real, on the list here in this world, growing exponentially, the depression, anxiety. So people who tend to be fearful, they're like really high souls. They're the type of personalities like Yitzchak Avinu, who was gifted with a lot of Geula, strength.
Isaac, okay.
Right. So Geula in the Hasidic terminology is someone who has the ability to reach a very high level of awe and wonderment in Hashem, in trust in God and faith in God, because they have such a strong capacity, more maybe than the average person. So the type of personality that's going to be more fearful is the personality that's been gifted with this overabundance of this yira, of this awe and wonderment. So to channel that capacity of their soul to more and more align itself with awe and wonderment in Hashem will dissipate organically the anxiety, the panic attacks, the OCD-ness of people, because they're very high souls and they've been gifted with so much of this Geula, with this strength. And once they just channel it in a good way, then organically the other melts away. It's kind of like if you think about, the idea of the positivity bias. I don't know if you been lots of buzz about that, where the whole life of the Rebbe was about switching everything to the positive. So instead of saying, oh my gosh, I am anxious. No, I have such a high soul. I have so much yira. Now let me see this as a positive thing, because now I know that I can reach very high heights in this way, so that we diffuse the scariness. We diffuse the panic about things in life or the things about ourselves, and we just have a paradigm shift, and we create positivity in that weak point of ours. And so that fear is just going to be an awe and wonderment of Hashem, rather than being used by the other side of us to keep us imprisoned and feel the panic and anxiety.
Oh, great. Okay, so you're not, I think Sartova mentioned, I don't remember who brought up these points, but what you're just bringing up is another principle that I think is super important. I know you said it before, I just want to capture it now, highlight it, that when we have a tendency or an experience that is not harmonized, that pulls us down where we don't want to go. It's not meant to be eliminated. It's meant to be lifted up and used for its proper purpose. So energy is energy. I used to hear frequently from in the healing world that if that the new life that's coming into a person's life or into the world, if they don't expand and receive it, it causes symptoms, even physical symptoms. Like a lot of the symptoms are what's happening in the world. There's a tremendous movement. There's a new life. There's something being born. And so, yeah, it's also, you know, that depends on whether you're holding on to the old, whether you're the detaching chick holding onto the shell that's cracking around you, or whether you're embracing this emergence as a whole new universe that you're totally equipped to explore. So I think that's really important, really, really important and very powerful.
Yeah, imagine like a child and they're with a wagon and they're trying to go forward and they see this like huge monster like in the middle of the road and the child's like frozen there, scared. Imagine now the child's there with the wagon about to cross the road and you know what? The monster's with them and they're going forward. So when we take this monster, oh my gosh, I am anxious. Oh, I'm the type of personality to get depressed, or whatever it is that a person is struggling with and trying to have a more Geulic state, by kind of demystifying the negative and putting a light to the positivity. Now this monster is my friend. Actually, now I can take this monster and go forward because it's not a monster. And this is what Hasidus teaches us. It helps us understand that our weakness is our strength. And then we don't become immobilized. Then we have the strength to be that true leader. Because when we empower ourselves in this way, then it's like we've taken the light and the light just took away the darkness. The darkness is an absence of this light. Right. And then people begin to be transformed. Because when I start to have my own personal Geula, I've empowered organically the whole world to go to that level. Because we're all one.
It's true. And I can use myself as well as an example. I used to be very fear-ridden, very, very fear-ridden. And the more now many things make me want to laugh. It's true that the more you're informed from the divine perspective and, you know, the mystical Torah, and the more you do work with yourself and let those triggers trigger you and know that they're information and assistance to clear things, to reorganize. It's absolutely true that we learn. It's a concept that it's a core concept, a foundation of Hasidus, of mystical Torah, that the greatest light is in the darkness, meaning that your greatest superpower is in your greatest challenge.
Yes.
Or challenge is superpowers. So it's really true. Like, as we said in the beginning of this call, you know, it's not just the things that you have passion for, which are kind of like an overall already sort of developed vessel for the direction that you're going to be pulled in your life. I care about relationships. I care about teaching. I care about, you know, transformation. I care about healing, whatever it is. But it's also the challenges. Those are great. They're awesome. And they're going to be used. But the challenges are going to fill those with light. They're going to fill those with your absolute power to make a transformational difference in your life and in your relationships and the world at large, whether you leave your house or not. I mean, I'm in my house right now.
And who knows whether a challenge like the coronavirus, which transcends boundaries and transcends nationalities and suddenly binds us all together, having to face the same challenge, could promote, you know, greater unity in the long run. And we could be sitting here watching this rerun a couple of, you know, months from now, from the base of Migdash, saying, wow, so that was just the last thing we needed to turn things so that the world let the boundaries disappear, and we realize that we're just all one, that, you know, we all have the same, you know, the same needs to be loved and respected as a universe.
And be part of something greater than ourselves, which is also, I think, a core human need.
Yeah.
That's where purpose comes in. Yeah. I also feel like virus. Like, what is a virus? When I looked it up,
I wanted to say something about virus.
Okay. So go ahead. You go first. We'll see if
that's okay. The way that a virus works, it looks like a kind of a spaceship, and it drops down into, let's say, the nasal passages, and says, "Okay, I'm taking over. Until now, you were creating nasal tissue. I'm taking over the DNA. You work for me now, and you create more of me." The end. and it's extremely aggressive. And when you were talking about the light of Mashiach, it feels like it's the same thing.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's exactly.
We want to allow the light of Mashiach to just come in, take over, and say, okay, until now you guys have been creating problems and a fear mentality and a feeling of it's getting worse and worse and worse. I'm taking over. From now on, I take the DNA, and you work for me now. You guys all work for me. And every 20 seconds, we're going to create a whole huge batch of more of me, of Geula light, and like you guys have no chance. And we know what it feels like when you have the virus, and it's just like, till you fight it off. So here's, the Geula light, the light from the future, as you were saying. Maybe we want to stop trying to fight it off, and say, great, the Geula light is taking over, and I'm gonna let it take over my life and everybody's life, and this is good news. And I'm watching the virus to see the mechanics of how the whole thing works, so that I can work with the Geula light.
So that's beautiful. On a cultural level, we can see that it worked, that like emotions and ideas in our very hooked up society catch on like a fire, like nothing ever did before. But how does actually the virus work? So I read that the virus, you spoke to it a bit, but the virus has information, has a program. And I read that viruses cannot replicate by themselves, but they have to actually co-opt the living cell, and then the cell replicates according to the instruction, it replicates the virus. So what would that be with Geula light and potential? How does the virus actually take over the cell? Because sometimes the virus is everywhere, right? And sometimes the immune system fights them off, and other times it doesn't. So how would that work? How could we train our immune system? What resonance or idea or whatever could we connect to that would fight off or eliminate, say no to the Gullah's viruses, which is certainly fears, and yes, and yep, I'm taking you on to a deeper truth, to a healing truth, cosmically healing truth.
Wow. It's interesting that you're saying this, because I'm very into health, and I've studied it forever, because I've had my own journeys of trying to keep well. Please God, we should all be well and healthy. I remember learning Louis Pasteur saying that we should not fear a virus necessarily. We should fear that our body is a good habitat for it to multiply. Because as you're saying, if our body is more acidic and we're overindulging in too much sugar and too much foods that are just toxicity, it's a feeding ground to allow this virus to stay and multiply. So if you think about it in Geuladic terms, our habitat, our body, when we have this vessel of more light, then the higher powers of our soul, our godly soul, can then be in partnership with our body to have that divine revelation of who we truly are. So in Hasidic teachings, if you look at the Shema, you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeh, and then you go to V'ahavta et Hashem Elokeh, and it says B'chol Levavcha, and it should
you have to translate.
I'm going to say that. Yeah, when we say, "Hear, oh God, God is one," and then the next sentence, paragraph that comes is like, "And you're going to love your God." Well, if you look in the terminology in Hebrew, it says it in the plural, hearts. And when you see, there's the godly heart, and then there's the animalistic heart. There's the heart that is the godly soul's heart, and then we have the heart of the animal soul's heart. So the more we focus on the oneness and the unity of Hashem, the more we unmask, it's right now Purim, we're unmasking the truth of being, then both of our hearts, the animal soul's heart and the godly soul's heart, together end up joining forces to be that light. So it's like as if, we don't have to battle the animal soul anymore. Imagine there's like this animal and you're trying to battle it to go with you. And imagine like you're putting a doggy bone in front of a dog and it's coming with you. So logic, rationalism, all these Torah wisdom helps the animal soul with its own terminology, because the animal soul is our body, the animal soul is our brain. So our brain starts to think a different way and can connect with the truth. Then the animal soul on its own terms comes with the godly soul, and together they go walking hand in hand, so that we don't have to fear that virus. It's like the virus, the animal soul is not a virus, actually. It's the truth of its existence is higher than actually the godly soul. It comes from the world of Tohu, which is a divine energy higher than the godly soul. And that's why
the animal soul, just in case people, hang on a second, Miriam, just so in case people aren't following, the animal soul being the part of us which animates the body, which has us long for food and pleasure and it's associated with the ego. Yeah, so just that's what Miriam's speaking to. That's the more the personality, human nature part of us.
Yes, the body, the human nature, our base animalistic tendencies that seemingly are negative. Again, we're going back to the same thing. Once it is aroused to the truth of its real existence, then it just automatically becomes a partner, and it's not a battle anymore because the light is turned on.
Now, I love what Miriam just said about our internal environment. That do we have a healthy internal environment to stave off this negative thing, whatever it might be? And what popped into my mind immediately was that one of the biggest indicators, or one of the biggest causes of a lowered immune system, is stress and unhappiness. And that when we're open and trusting and accepting and loving, that we're creating antibodies every moment. We're creating antibodies. It's like, here I am. I'm a power lifter. I'm healthy with love and giving and oneness and acceptance. And so I'm not going to be afraid of this virus.
Yeah, yes. So we want one level is to not be afraid, which is very important. And another level is, as has just been expressed, to connect with our soul, our super conscious immune system, so that it becomes conscious as well as super conscious. And it comes into the body where it needs to come. Anything else? And then the idea of unity, of how this is something that the world is aware of, which the Heart Math organization, I used to interview one of their spokespeople quite a lot. And apparently their research shows that when a large number of people at the same time have a very heightened emotion, it actually affects the Earth's magnetic field. And then the Earth's magnetic field affects people. So there's actually, there's so many different ways we could find this with the kind of research that's happening, but our thoughts, our feelings actually help to create a reality, not just conceptually, but there are ways to actually track that physically and energetically more and more. Yeah, that's only one of them. So it's really interesting that when somebody can create a narrative, or a group of people can create a narrative, whether based on some truth or not, we can get stuck in a reaction to that, which then makes it solid. Or we can move it to a higher level. I think that's true with all things in life, that, mystical Torah, as everyone here knows, mystical Torah, Hasidus tells us that the world is not static. It's not solid. Science tells us that also. It's just quantum energy, but that it's being brought into being again and again faster than the eye could possibly perceive. And that goes together with us, where we're blinking in and out of existence constantly and coming back with memories, but completely new, with new divine energy, which more new divine energy keeps entering the world, especially now with the Geula process. So what does that mean in terms of our ability to actually take the waves of potential to come in a certain form, and then, harness it like spiritual Aikido, to use it to move it toward another form. So if coronavirus, this cannot be an accident that it's the name Corona, that it's crown, which you're talking about Malchus, about sovereignty, which is connected to the divine crown, which is divine, again, God's inner deepest experience, and ours as well, the soul's as well, is called crown, it's called Keser, and it's made up of pleasure and desire. So how can anything anybody wants to add to the
I wanted to say
yeah, go ahead.
About the immune system. Firma was speaking about a healthy immune system and stress. So really, besides everything else, stress is from the feeling of the world's out to get me, the world's out to get me, right? And we know that we have those two possibilities. Somebody once spoke about men, and she said, are men wolves or sheepdogs? So when you walk out of your apartment building in the morning, are you walking out into a street full of wolves that are all out to get you, or sheepdogs that all say, ma'am, can I hold the door open for you? And of course, I remember she said, depending on your perspective, the wolves will all turn into sheepdogs. Essentially, everybody here today, on some level, from the light of the future, is here to help you. So when I'm in that mode of world's out to get me, it's so scary, the world's out to get me, all these things are coming at me, I'm going to feel stressed, and it's going to have that effect on my immune system. If I can drag and drop every time I'm feeling, oh no, and I say, wait a minute, I can't do anything other than drag and drop from the light of the future, pink or whatever color, right onto this circumstance here. The world's not out to get me. The world is out to help me. Already I have a way stronger immune system that is set up to take all of these things and use them rather than react, so yeah.
Yeah, there is to open our eyes and see Geula, see Mashiach, and it seems like also the way we perceive things automatically begins to move them in that direction. Like I think one of the things that we all experience, at least a good portion of the time, is looking to see, what is it that Hashem is trying to do for our benefit? Because, and I didn't get to this place so easily. It's taken me quite a few years, but I think I'm here most of the time now. I just see it's just the way it seems to work. So if you have that question, how is Hashem going to make this work out? How's God going to make this work out in an amazing way? Then looking for that actually reveals that out of the ayin, out of the infinite divine potential, at least for you. And I do often think that each of us literally has our own world and our own laws of nature, depending on where we're connecting and how much work we've done. And it's not that we don't interact with each other, but none of us are experienced. It even says in Daniel say in Shabbos that nobody has exactly the same perspective. But I think also we're each in a certain sense in our own particular field of reality, our own dimension of reality that might have a lot in common with other people's, especially when we're emotionally connected and philosophically connected to those. But that, like, you don't have to be poor because there's a depression or a recession. Nor are you necessarily going to be rich if there's the opposite. Like we more than ever before, I think we can find ourselves in a private relationship with God, who's creating our individual world as part of the collective world. And the more I think we are aware of that, if we don't really understand it yet, the more effect, because the more effect it will have on the whole, as well as our own lives. Because connecting vertically, connecting up, knowing that it's me and God, and then the world, not in an ego way, but in a deeper reality way, it actually, according to the Rebbe, puts you in a higher realm where the laws of nature are different. So bit called almin in Kabbalistic terms rather than memali called almin. So you're actually you're partnering in creation, as several people have spoken to, rather than being a recipient or a victim of it. And I think that's another really important, crucially important Geula principle. Are you going to be a partner in creation? You don't have to know how. You have to. When the Jews accepted the Torah, one of the core reasons that the Torah explains, and one of the core qualities that the Torah speaks about, the Jewish nation specifically, that every nation, every person, if you choose, can learn from and emulate and invoke yourself, because it's a potential that humans have. But when the Jews were offered as a nation the Torah, they said, yes, we'll do it. And then we'll figure out what's in it. And that, naseh v'nishma, to use the Torah term. And that you can decide, you have the power right now, no matter what your background or who you are or where you are or what you've been through or what's limiting you or what's bothering you or what's hurting you. You have the power to say, yes, I'm making a commitment now on this special holy day of the 7th of Adar, the birthday and the anniversary of the passing, which is a very holy day for a tzaddik, for a holy person. of Moses and Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the recipient of the Torah, the channel between heaven and earth for all of humanity, because the Torah ultimately is for everyone and Geula is for everyone. So you can choose to say yes to partnership, yes to learning, yes to purpose, and then you can figure out what that means, and you can get support from any of these amazing women or any of our other practitioners or anyone you choose, or me in my school, or all. So that's really the bottom line. It's not who you are or what your background is or what you know or what you're dealing with or what you don't know or what you're scared of. That just all, I hope it's become clear, at least somewhat clear, that that's all part of the picture. And it's now about the transformation. It's now about the unification. It's now about the revelation. So if you choose to say yes, and that's where free choice comes in, then go learn, then work with yourself and start embedding, the love, revealing the union. That's my plug for today. We're going to have to wrap up because another call is coming soon, but maybe we can spend just one more round robin, 1 or 2 minutes, just to anything else you want to say.
I was thinking about, we're talking about the auspiciousness of the day and keeping abreast with the times. So the Torah reading for this time is about the clothing of the high priest. Speaking about being abreast with the time, it talks about his breastplate. And this was, like the most gorgeous thing. What was on it? It was precious stones that symbolized 12 brothers who had fought with each other so much that they were willing to take one of them and throw him in a pit. And that brother acknowledging to the other brothers, whatever you've done to me, I was in our best interest. You're just God's messenger, and I forgive you. And this unbelievable reunification of these brothers, and that's our gift. That's our jewel. That's our breastplate. That's what's closest to our hearts. And it's no accident that was what I was reading yesterday before I fell asleep, because it speaks so loudly to what we need to do to bring Geula, that unbelievable forgiveness and acceptance of ourselves and of others that's necessary to get to Geula consciousness.
Thank you. Okay, Nirvatzon. Next leader. Should I call on somebody?
I think she said it. She said it very well. That basically, that this is the path. This is the path. It's the integration, and it's loving ourselves so we can love others, and full acceptance of ourselves, and it's really that we are one with God. That's so powerful. And then we could see that in others. If we're one with God, everybody else is one with God, and it just takes us to a whole different level. And just a big piece for me is the unification process, which Miriam has elaborated on, is just one little extra piece, is that how do you unify is to validate the suppressed feminine side. The suppressed feminine side is like our immature side. It's the inner child. And the masculine, the spiritual, is the more mature adult. And so the adult sort of has to first validate the child and realize that there is something true. Like a child is so pure and innocent and fun, and that's really the truth. That's how it's supposed to be. We're always shutting that down. And so we have to start saying, there's something right about you, and let me hear what you have to say. And once he feels heard and validated, he's like, okay, no, I do realize that it's inappropriate to like jump on tables. Okay, you validated him, now he could hear you. And that's how you unify. Then the adult says, well, maybe we could jump only on certain times or certain places. And then like, great. And then they work together. So it's about, this is the same formula for every polar opposite of, that's the unification, where the mature one has to listen to the deeper truth of the immature one, which is actually the higher light. And then when he validates that, then the defenses go down. Yeah, so that's sort of like with that coronavirus, where you, instead of fighting, you just hear what, stop making these things against it and whatever, all these, and then you listen to what it's saying. There's a deep message, and then you work together as a team. And that's, for the masculine and feminine, and for, the two sides of our soul, the body and the soul, everything in this world. That's how we create the unity and reveal the perfection of the world.
Beautiful. Thank you. Miriam Sartova?
Did we lose them?
Nope,
Okay.
they're right here. They're thinking.
Well, I feel like I didn't want to take too much space. I feel like I shared a lot, but there's so much more to say. And what I was thinking is, so many people, when you're thinking about like creating the best you and like really having that geula to be the best that you can be, when you have, let's say, an instruction to bake a cake and you follow the instructions, and then the cake comes out. But if you think, well, I'll just put the dry ingredients first in the oven, and then after I'll put the eggs, like you have all the ingredients there, but somehow it's not making the cake. So, we have so many ingredients and it's all there. And thank God Hashem says through our Tzaddik Hador, through the Rebbe of the generation, through the deep teachings of the Torah that's guiding us, like how to bake our own self. And step by step, the highest power of our souls are coming to us in the morning. When we pray, we open the door to our neshama. And then when we learn right after, that's an ingredient to keep it all together. Because a lot of women, a lot of people that even pray 3 times a day, a lot of questions, like they're doing these things, but how come it's not effectuating a change? How come, in fact, they're seemingly getting angrier over the years or more impatient? So the teaching is that our job here is to realize that the order of the day is critical. If you're going to build a well, you have to first build the structure of the well, and then you have to pour in the water, and then later on during the day you can hydrate. So basically our soul needs this structure, needs the flow of this divine godly wisdom, so that throughout the day we can nourish our soul, so we won't be dehydrated and then fragmented and all over the place. So I pray the day of Zayin Adar, the month of Adar, of strength, that we go back to the basics and realize that it's the structure of our day that helps us keep strong, and that not to go out one day without prayer, not to go out with one day of learning, because as soon as you do that, your soul becomes more and more depleted. And the more you get back to the basics, the more you strengthen yourself, that the inner avenger cannot find you, and that you have the strength to quiet the inner storm and be in that Geula mindset. So I really pray that, that we all be happy with the spiritual rituals that God gave us, because he's giving us that divine enlightenment.
Making vessels.
Yes. Back to basics.
Okay. And I would say, let's not underestimate who we are. And I mean everyone, I don't mean these coaches here, but everyone in the world. And I would say especially women or men with tuning into the feminine aspect, because the world is in a lot of pain. And we have that unique ability to nurture and nourish the world in a way that never was before. And when I know personally from 40 years of studying Hasidus, that every time I step into that book of Hasidus, the study of Hasidus, I experience it. I've literally stepped into a place of pure, clean, delicious truth that is unbelievable. And it's an entire, I feel that I'm stepping into the future, and I feel that I'm stepping into that light. And anybody can do it today. Open up, go to a class, open up that Sefer, study Hasidus. It is literally it's an entirely different world. And as Maimonides says, the entire occupation of the world will be nothing other than to want to know God. Yisrael Yu Chachamim Gedolim, we will be very great scholars, and we will be able to, and we will know great deep hidden secrets, and the world will be filled with the knowledge of God. And as I said at the very beginning, that's the only thing that can calm our soul in this moment, in these moments of transition, is knowing God, experiencing God from deep within. And every single person who's listening, every single person in the world has the ability now to be that ambassador, to reach out with truth and calm and soothe and nurture the world. So that's our merit, and may we go from strength to strength and step into the future with the whole world.
Amen. Wow. Okay, my friends on the Zoom and my friends watching the Zoom or listening, it's really been very, very, very special. I kind of thought it would be, but it's so much fun and so gratifying. I so appreciate being able to be in a deep exploration that gives me so many new perspectives and adds so much beauty, to the things that are really important. So again, I'm inviting everybody in light of all of this to join the conversation. And to do that, you really have to learn the mystical Torah, which is the blueprint for creation, which was given to bring peace to the world and peace to the heart and union between God and earth, world of heaven on earth. It's coming. But, it would be an easy, gracious birth, and that's what's possible. But the more of us who are connecting, the more possible it will be. Okay, we'll all talk soon. Happy Zion Adar and blessings in everyone's work.
Thank you. Amazing.
Take care.
Bye-bye.